Everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So in this video, we're going to have a look at some of the horses that are due to run at the Cheltenham Festival that maybe this season hasn't quite gone to plan. And because of that, they are arguably a bigger price than what they should be for different races. And we're actually going to start off with a fairly obvious one. Jeriko du Reponet. It clearly hasn't gone to plan for Jeriko du Reponet. However, he has now at least qualified for the Temps final. And although it hasn't gone to plan, he is actually favourite for the Temps final still. If we have a look, you can see that he is... You can get 6-1 about him for the Temps final. Now, the thing you've got to think about here, though, is... Okay, he went off 11-1 last year for the Supreme Novice. However, that was on the back of the Henderson form. They knew already at that stage that the Henderson horses were out of form. They weren't going to run well. There was a few that ran and drifted and disappointed. He then ended up taking out most of his runners from the Cheltenham Festival. Before that, though, he'd gone off 2-5, for example, to beat Secret Squirrel. Secret Squirrel. That was harder to say than I thought it was going to be. Secret Squirrel is rated 133, has won a feature handicap at Windsor, and then fell in the William Hill Hurdle when sent off the 100-30 favourite. Lump Sum. Jeriko du Reponet went off 4-6 to beat Lump Sum and Fiercely Proud. Lump Sum is rated 147. Fiercely Proud is rated 137. Jeriko du Reponet could run in the Temps final for 135. On last year's form, he's very well handicapped. Okay, it all went wrong when he turned up at Sandown over fences. He'd lost his chance at before they'd even ran. Got upset whilst being saddled. Don't know why Henderson allowed the horse to take his chance. They then dropped him back over hurdles, where he ran an eye-catching 5th in the intermediate hurdle when not asked for an effort. And then, again, similar effort at Exeter when finishing 3rd in the Temps qualifier. They were just getting him qualified. He could be very, very well handicapped. Now, if you had said that Jeriko du Reponet was going to end up in the Temps final off a mark of 135, you would have said, well, he's going to be mega short. He's going to be like 6-4 favourite because some of his form last season was very good. We knew it was very good. Yeah, you would have been very, very keen on that. But because of the way his form has gone this season, he's not that price. He's available at 6-1. I actually think that's a big price for Jeriko du Reponet. I think the Woolpark will end up going in the stayers. I think Win Some, Lose Some won't end up running here. Jeriko du Reponet will be JP's #1 in the race, and he will go off a short price favourite. I can see him going off 5-2 for this race. Honestly, I think he is so well handicapped, and it will be the first time that he's actually allowed to run properly since winning at Doncaster. When beating, as I said, he beat Lump Sum, who's rated 147, and he beat Fiercely Proud, who's rated 137. He's only rated 135 now. He beat both of those, and he beat them comfortably. So yeah, although it's an obvious one in terms of he is quite short in the market, I don't think he's short enough on the basis of what has happened this season. The second horse we're going to look at is a horse called Trelawne. Now, Trelawne is interesting because last season he went off 5-1 second favourite for the Ultima. He went off a shorter price than Chianti Classico, his stablemate, who ended up winning the race. It all went wrong for Trelawne. He fell at the second fence, which was gutting because I think we were on at 16s or 14s. He went off 5-1, fell at the second fence. Very disappointing. Now, this season they did kind of get it wrong. They went to Haydock over 2 mile 5, and I don't think they realised how good a horse they had when they beat Iroko, and he went up £8 for that. Sorry, he went up to a mark of 152. Now, he's disappointed the last twice. At Ascot, he finished 4th in a Silver Cup, and then finished 4th in the Sky Bet Peter Marsh. Now, I can kind of forgive the Peter Marsh because of the way that course handles, although he did win at Haydock, so you would have to be a little bit disappointed with that. But maybe at that point they were already thinking, We don't have a horse to compete in a graded race, but we do have a handicapper. Can we get him dropped in the handicap? They unfortunately didn't. They still rated 152. But considering he went off 5-1 last year off a mark of 144, you would have said, I would have definitely said, that he could win up to 150, 152. That was the sort of mark he should be looking at. So does that not mean that now, coming back for the old teamer, if he was to take his chance, he is overpriced on the basis that, could he win it again? Did I think he could win at Cheltenham and then go to Aintree? Yes, I did actually. I thought he could win at Cheltenham, win there, and then go to Aintree and probably win again. I thought he was that well handicapped. So, considering he went a 5s last year, what is he likely to go off this year? He's right down here, and you can get 25-1 non-runner no bet. So, you back him at 25s, 5 times the price he was last year. Yes, he's got £8 more to carry, but if you liked him last year at off 144, you thought he could win and be rated around this sort of mark. So why couldn't he go close again off 125, at 25-1, 5 times the price he was last year? He's an interesting one. He's definitely in the shortlist for the Cheltenham Festival. Ginny's Destiny, who I did like for this race, is meant to be going to the plate, and we will come on to that one shortly in this video. With that in mind, Trelawne definitely is in my 4 that I'm currently liking for the old teamer. Next horse I want to talk about is, again, kind of obvious, but it's all about the price now. Stateman. So it's not gone to plan for Stateman this season. And as such, he's turning up to a Cheltenham Festival as big as 6-1 non-runner no bet. Now I say non-runner no bet because what if they went, actually we're not going to run him there, we're going to wait for Punches Down for him, and we're going to try and win the champion hurdle with Lossiemouth to take on Brighter Days Ahead and Constitution Hill. But say he did run and he went off 6-1. Look at the prices he's gone off previously for races. He's suddenly a very big price. He only went off 7-2 for a champion hurdle when Constitution Hill was in it. Yes, he got beat by Constitution Hill, but we don't really know. Don't know why I went kind of... Did I go posh then? Or we don't know whether Constitution Hill's back to his best. So he went off 7-2 against Constitution Hill, and last year he was sent off 2-5. Okay, there's better horses in against him. If he'd won all of his races this season, we would have been... You know, he would... I think he would still be favourite, wouldn't he? He'd be ahead of Constitution Hill in the market, because we don't know how good Constitution Hill is. Now, I know he's not won all of his races. He's been beaten comfortably by Brighter Days Ahead at Punchestown and Leopardstown, but Brighter Days Ahead got beat at Cheltenham. That would be a concern. Why did Brighter Days Ahead get beat at Cheltenham in a significantly easier race than what Brighter Days Ahead's going to have to run in? So you could almost... For me, I would put Stateman a shorter price than Brighter Days Ahead on Cheltenham form. We know that he does run well at Cheltenham. He's won 2 races out of 3, only been beaten by Constitution Hill. Brighter Days Ahead got beat by Golden Ace. Golden Ace isn't winning a champion hurdle. So yeah, Stateman could be potentially overpriced for the champion hurdle. If you wanted an angle into that races, I don't want to back Constitution Hill because he's too short. You probably don't want to... I would be taking on Brighter Days Ahead on the basis that she got beat at Cheltenham. Lossiemouth, she's good. I don't think she's as good as Constitution Hill, and I don't think she's as good as Stateman. And yeah, so that leaves me with Stateman. Sticking with the Willie Mullins team, another horse that it's definitely not gone quite to plan this season. And it's almost not gone to plan since pulling up at Cheltenham last year, is El Fabiolo. El Fabiolo went off 2-9 last year for the champion chase and pulled up after making a really bad mistake at, what was it, the 5th fence. Then went to Sandown and got beat by Jonbon, and then recently went to Leopardstown in the doubling chase and fell. But he went off 3-1 that day. I think I've always suggested that El Fabiolo has a huge amount of ability. It's just not worked so far this season. We've got to remember, though, he has been to Cheltenham and won. He's won an Arkle. And he won an Arkle beating John Bon, running away from John Bon. So, you know, you could almost say on that basis, they could be a similar-ish price. Where is the Champion Chase? Here it is. They could be a similar price. Now, John Bon is odds on at 4 to 5, 5 to 6. You can get even money, but whoever they are, they're a new one that's just appeared there. El Fabiolo is massive. You can get 14s non-runner no bet with Bet365, so kind of ignore that. But you can definitely get 12s non-runner no bet about El Fabiolo. So this is on the basis that if he doesn't run here and he runs in the Ryanair, you get your money back. Which they might do to just slow down the race so that he can sort out his jumping. If, however, he goes to Cheltenham in the Champion Chase and he jumps well, I think he wins it. I really do. I think he beats John Bon. He beats Gaelic Warrior. He beats Marine National. He beats Energumene. I think El Fabiolo would win that race. So you're getting 12 to 1 about the horse jumping well. And that's, you know, I think they could get him to jump much better this time. They might change tactics. When he beat John Bon in the Arkle, it was no surprise that he went favourite for the Champion Chase, and it was no surprise that last year he went off 2 to 9. You're going from 2 to 9 to 12s for a Champion Chase. I think that's too big to ignore, on the basis that if he comes back to his best, I think he wins it. Moving on to Jasmin De Vaux. Now, she's very interesting. I say she. I always think Jasmin De Vaux is a mare, because of the name. It's gelding. So he's very interesting for me because last season he turned up at Cheltenham for the bumper. He went off 9 to 2 for the bumper. Okay, being a Mullins horse, they're always going to be short. But he did win it. He beat Romeo Coolio. He beat Jalon Dudery. Romeo Coolio is still like second favourite for the Supreme Novice. And at the beginning of the season, when Jasmin De Vaux ran, beat the Enabler, beat Work Ahead. Work Ahead's franked that form since. The Enabler's done well since. It looked a really good effort. They then went to the 2.5 mile Grade 1. Sent off 11 to 8 favourite. Didn't work. Made some mistakes. And then went to Leopardstown for a 2 mile 6 Grade 1. This time went off a better price, as in a more realistic price for his chance on at the time. Went off 17 to 2, got beat, finished 4th, disappointed. They've only given this horse one entry for the Cheltenham Festival, and that is the Albert Bartlett, the 3 mile novice hurdle, the 3 mile novice hurdle. And I kind of feel that might not be the worst price in the world, particularly with Final Demand. I think will end up in the 2.5 against the New Lion. The Yellow Clay, they've just come out and said that one might end up in the 2.5. Jasmin De Vaux could be taking on essentially just the big Westerner and horses that are actually bigger price. They could go so slow here for Jasmin De Vaux that he jumps much better and then demonstrates his pure ability, his natural ability that he has, and his speed that allowed him to win a Cheltenham bumper last year. And I think he'd run a really big race in the Albert Bartlett. And as I said, if the Yellow Clay and Final Demand both don't turn up there, that race suddenly looks significantly easier. And Jasmin De Vaux might not have to be anywhere near his natural best to win it. He just needs to jump the hurdles better. You can get 10s about that. 10 to 1 non-runner no bet. I think that's a good price. I really do. I think it could go off 4s, 5s, come the day. Big Westerner might go off favourite, Jasmin De Vaux. And then if they go, well, Jasmin De Vaux has worked really well at home, jumped much better. We've got him jumping really well. He could end up going off favourite even. So Jasmin De Vaux, on the basis of having a poor season or it not quite working the second half of the season, is too big a price. As I said, a horse who wins the Champion Bumper at 9 to 2 to then be 10 to 1 for a race at the Cheltenham Festival the following season is surely too big. Coming from that same race, You Ought to Know is potentially interesting. You Ought to Know went off 15 to 2 last year for the Champion Bumper and had some really nice form coming into it. It didn't work in the Champion Bumper, didn't work in the Irish Champion Bumper at Punchestown. Interestingly, he's had just the one run this season. Just one run over 2 mile and won it. One of those, he could be one of those horses that we don't know a lot about. Danny Mullins might end up riding him in, say, like the Supreme. I think he runs in the Supreme. And if all of the others don't quite run to their level, he could be one that picks up some pieces. I can kind of see him finishing in the places in the Supreme Novice. Maybe not winning the race, but running into a place, having been given... I think Patrick Mullins might ride this, to be honest. I think he might be weighted with right out the back and then finishing as fast as he can into the places. It's quite a big price for this race, you know. You can get 33 to 1 about him. Non-runner, no bet. Now, I do think you want to be looking at the non-runner, no bet in this race because Willie's got so many. He could send this one to the Turners. There's no reason to send him to the Turners, though. He hasn't got any form that demonstrates that he wants further. All of his runs so far have been over 2 mile. He just couldn't do it in bumpers, but maybe with hurdles to slow them down a little bit, this 2 mile trip will be fine. 33 to 1, non-runner, no bet. The fact that I'm probably gonna, well, I've already backed Work Ahead. I like Work Ahead. I like You Ought to Know. They'll probably be my 2 in the Supreme Novice. This one, it hasn't not worked this season. He's just been very quietly campaigned. He's only had the one run. He beat Brave Brigadier by a long way. Even that form has been franked quite nicely. He beat Brave Brigadier by 11 lengths. Brave Brigadier then came out and got beat by 17 lengths by Kappa G Pike. Kappa G Pike is a shorter price here. Okay, Brave Brigadier was beaten further, but You Ought to Know was coming on the back of a layoff. Yeah, I think You Ought to Know is overpriced for the Supreme Novice. Moving on to Ginny's Destiny. I've mentioned him briefly earlier on in the video. It's really not gone right for Ginny's Destiny this season. On the back of last season, went to Cheltenham in January 2024, won off a mark of 147, beat Theatre Man quite nicely. Then ended up running in the Turner's Novice Chase, finishing second behind Grey Dawning. Now, if you said a horse who was rated 155, who got beat 2 lengths in a Turner's Novice Chase, Grade 1 at the Cheltenham Festival, would turn back up the following season in the handicap off a £6 lower mark, you would have gone, what on earth has happened to that horse? Have the wheels fallen off? I don't think they have. Returned beginning of the season, went off 3 to 1 for the Paddy Power Gold Cup. It didn't work that day. Then ran okay in a Peterborough Chase, and then finished 10th last time out of 11 when making most of the running before weakening right near the finish. That was on the 25th of January. I think the flu jabs were still in the system, and that just meant the horse faded very quickly late on. So you've got a horse who went off 11 to 2 for the Turners, coming back this season in a handicap of a lower mark. What price is he going to be? He's going to be... Where is it? Plate. There. He's going to be, I don't know, if I was looking at this and I was trying to work it out, off a lower mark, I'd say he's going to be sub 10 to 1 for sure. Because he's a lower mark, he finished second, he's going to come there with a massive chance. Down here at 16s. 16s, non-runner, no bet. They have suggested that this is the race they're going to go for. Rather than the Ultima, which didn't totally make sense. I think they thought he needed to step up in trip. But actually, in hindsight, they're now looking at it and going, actually, the flu jab was still in his system. There was a few others that ran poorly because of it. He's got the Cheltenham form. He's got the Cheltenham Festival form. He's got a very nice handicap mark. 16s, I think, is a great price. I think this does look a very competitive race. There's a few in this that I like, but I'd be really looking at Crebilly and Ginny's Destiny at this stage as my top 2 in that race. Ginny's Destiny has to be a bet in the Trusted Trader plate. And as I said, if you go non-runner, no bet, if he doesn't turn up and runs in the Ultima, or they end up not running at the festival, you get your money back. Moving on to Theatre Man. So Theatre Man, also, you can see that it's not gone right since falling at the Cheltenham Festival. He went off 100 to 30 last year at the Cheltenham Festival. 100 to 30 for the plate, off a mark of 137. So what price would he be this year? Surely he's going to be a significantly, a real short price again. Well, this is the plate. $14s, $16s, $25s if you were confident he was going to run there. So he's 14 to 1 non-runner no bet for this race. And he is... is... 20s non-runner no bet for this race. So he's 14s and 20s for the same course and distance that he ran over last year when he went off the 100 to 30 favourite. Surely he's got to be a bet in both of those races on the basis that you're getting a significantly bigger price than what he was last year. Okay, it's not worked out since then. He went to Aintree after falling over hurdles. Yeah, it didn't work. Come back this season, he finished 4th in a novice chase over 3 mile. They then dropped him back to 2.5 at Oughta. I still kind of feel that they were looking at just getting him over the fences that day. They got beat by Jinko Blue, who's probably a graded horse. Jaguar wasn't that far in front, where he was a little bit, but I don't think there's a lot between them. Jaguar's right down here at 4s. I think this price about Theatre Man is wrong, and it would not surprise me if he was suddenly really well supported again on the day. You could back him in both races, and I think he goes off sub 10 to 1 in either race if he runs, on the basis that, even his effort behind Ginny's Destiny, that was a very good effort. He's actually lower in the handicap than when he was beaten by Ginny's Destiny. Back him in both, back him non-runner no bet. Whatever race he runs in, I imagine he'll go off a shorter price. Having mentioned both Ginny's Destiny and Theatre Man for the plate, this would be the third one for the plate. And I imagine that he is going to go in the plate and not the Ultima. Again, I don't see why he would run him in the Ultima. It's Crebilly, who has clearly been aimed at this race at returning, hasn't he? His form last season, he won at Exeter in February, came to the Cheltenham Festival, went off 7 to 2. Got beat by Shake 'em Up Harry when didn't quite work out, didn't jump very well, arguably did really well to finish second. Nothing wrong with that performance. Went off 7 to 2. He's currently 8. If Jaguar ends up in that novice handicap chase, which I think he will, Crebilly's going to be a short price. Crebilly's going to be the favourite. Everyone's going to latch onto him, go, look, he's been handicapped. He's been plotted for this race. You can forgive his run at Kempton. They weren't trying. If they had been trying, he wouldn't have gone off 10 to 1, would he? He ran over 2 mile at Windsor before that, too short, and he ran over hurdles before that. This will be the first time that he's actually going to be trying. He goes off 7 to 2. You can get 8s about him, non-runner no bet at this stage. I think it's a good bet. So yeah, you might end up already having your 3 in the plate. You might have Crebilly, Ginny's Destiny, and Theatre Man. But I think they all go off shorter prices than what they currently are. Moving on, the next horse that caught my eye when I was going through this, looking at last year, is Where It All Began. He actually finished 4th last year in the Kinmure, off a mark of 135 behind I Know the Way You're Thinking, Gitmaker, Waka Clan. Only sent off 8 to 1. Didn't appear to have the pace for most of the race. And just stayed on towards the finish. Now, he's only rated 130 now. Bearing in mind he went off 8 to 1 for it last year, we have to have a look to see what price is he this year. Because you take out the winner, who was a grade 1 horse. The other 3, there wasn't a huge amount between them. So what sort of price would we be looking at for a horse who placed in it last year and has not had things go well this season, as you can see? Pulled up 15th, fell. Because of that, he's dropped significantly in the weights. Are they targeting this time of year, this race, and maybe even the Irish National? So let's have a look. Let's find him. What's it called? Where It All Began. Keep going down. Where It All Began. 50 to 1, non-runner, no bet. So if he doesn't get in, and he's balloted out, you have to remember you get your money back anyway. But the fact you can get 50s non-runner, no bet, you might as well take that. 50s for a horse who went off 8s last year, finished 4th. You take out the winner, he finishes in the first 3. He's probably going to run a similar race, I feel. Maybe he's been plotted at this. You know, to get him back for this race, they were really disappointed or really frustrated that they bumped into a Grade 1 horse. Granted, there might be something at the top of the head of the market again. Samagès, Now Is the Hour. You're getting, what? He was 8s, you can get 50s this year. That, I think, is a big price for this race. There's a couple of others that I like in this race, but I think value-wise, Where It All Began at 50 to 1 is a huge price for this race. 2 more to go. The next one is Kargese, who, when being beaten at Ascot, I said straight away, it's got to end up at the county hurdle. No point running in the mares. They've also got one for the mares, Jade de Grugy, that's the owners and trainer. Don't need to run in that, might as well go for the county hurdle. If you had said a horse who finished second to Sergino and Majbra last season, they were her only she got beat on her return as well by Carla Conti, but after that she beat Stormheart, she beat Bottler's Secret, she got beat by Majbra and Sergino, would be running in a county hurdle and not the mayor's hurdle or the champion hurdle even. I think you would have gone, wow, it's going to be short price favourite. It's not favourite. You can still get 8s. So I've highlighted this many a times. It was 12s, non-runner, no bet. You should have already got on that. If you haven't, I still think 8s isn't a bad price. Went off 4 to 1 for the Triumph Hurdle to beat Majbra. Only Stormheart went off a shorter price. Went off 7 to 4 against Sergino. If we look at those two, for example, Majbra is now rated. Let's just load it up on my other screen. Both of those, Sergino and Majbra, were 150 rated plus over hurdles, and they're both 160 rated plus over fences. Kargese gave them both a good race. She challenged both of them for a long way. I actually thought she was going to win at Cheltenham and beat Majbra. Sergino, that's why I think Sergino would have beaten Majbra in the Arkle. Sergino was a little bit more comfortable beating Kargese. They pulled well clear of the rest. Kargese was very, very good. It just didn't quite work at the beginning of the season. Or say the beginning of the season in January when being beaten by Take No Chances. Now, to be fair, even that form wasn't bad. Take No Chances came into it off the back of finishing 3rd behind Woodoo in a handicap. Joyeuse had finished 2nd. Royal Margot was 4th. It was just a very good handicap, wasn't it? Kargese gets to run in the county hurdle for 141. The others 150 plus rated over hurdles and 160 rated plus over fences. I think Kargese's effort in the Triumph last year, I think will comfortably win the county hurdle. I really do. And I think the 8s is still worthy of a bet. She's never gone off 8s in her whole career in graded races, taking on the likes of Majbra, Sergino, Bottler's Secret, and other good horses who would be odds on if they were running in a county hurdle. So yeah, Kargese is one that I like for the county hurdle on the basis of I still think there's value in it. And finally, the last horse I want to talk about is King of Kingsfield, who caught my eye on the basis that last year went a 4 to 1 for the county hurdle. 4 to 1 for the county hurdle, the really competitive county hurdle. And it didn't quite work. Well, it didn't work. Finished 14th. Since then, went to Punchestown for a grade 1, went to Down Royal for a grade 3, went to Navan for a beginner's chase, and then dropped back over hurdles for a grade 1 when comfortably beaten by Brighter Days Ahead. Now, I don't feel the county hurdle worked. Finished 14th of 17. That's not where I'd be looking for King of Kingsfield. Sorry, I mean, that is where I would be looking for with King of Kingsfield. Went off fours last year. They clearly felt the horse was very well handicapped. Yes, it's a little bit higher in the handicap this year. But considering it went off fours and it's a little bit higher, you'd go, okay, 12s, 14s. Let's find him. He's down here at 20s, non-runner, no bet. So you're getting a much bigger price for a horse that went off 4-1 last year. And maybe the ground went against him. Maybe he didn't want that heavy going. His previous efforts have been good behind the likes of Ballyburn and beating Mirazur West, second to Farron Glory, second to Slade Steel. It was all really good form. And even this year, if we took that return, literally, not beaten that far by Brighter Days Ahead, you would go, well, King of Kingsfield is absolutely thrown in on that handicap mark. And maybe that's what they've been planning, to get him back this year. They thought, could we get him into the 2.5 handicap at Cheltenham? Went over fences, it didn't work, and they went, yeah, he's not the one for fences for us. But then dropped him back to hurdles. They knew he would get comfortably beaten in the Grade 1 behind the likes of Brighter Days Ahead and Stateman, and just made sure that, you know, they went off like a way too fast, deliberately got him comfortably beaten. Turns back up at Cheltenham, much better price. Could well be one of these that gets really well supported on the day. 20s, I don't mind that. We like Kargese. Why would you not like King of Kingsfield? I think that's a good second selection in the county hurdle. There are a couple of others that we will talk about in other videos that could be interesting for the county. But yeah, definitely those two would be two that I think are overpriced. So that was my horses from using last year's runs or prices that they went off at the Cheltenham Festival, where they are now. And I think there's quite a few here that are significantly, they're just overpriced and they are worthy of bets, because if they do bounce back or they do show the form that was expected, they, yeah, we're getting a much better price than we would have done last year.